Hello and welcome to the Brand Hunch podcast, where we explore ideas and hunches around how marketers are growing great brands. It's a look under the hood at how much is marketing science and how much is built on a hunch. This episode is in partnership with Tracksuit, a beautiful, affordable and always-on brand tracking tool that helps marketers and agencies answer the age-old question, is my strategy working? It's not enough to talk about great creative or reach. Your CFO wants proof that your campaigns are driving growth with the segments who actually matter. Tracksuit makes it all possible without the six-figure price tag. In just 30 days, you'll have a live dashboard tracking your brand health over time, benchmarking you against competitors, and surfacing boardroom-ready insights. We at Shallow use Tracksuit. Many of our guests on the podcast have used Tracksuit. It's a really, really great tool. If you can't prove your brand campaigns have worked, you risk losing your budget. No! And if you can, you unlock growth. Check them out at gotracksuit.com. Today, my guest is Hannah Vinden, Marketing Director at Better Beer. For those who don't know Better Beer, it was founded in 2021 by comedians Jack Steele and Matt Ford. They're the hosts of the much-loved Aussie podcast, The Inspired Unemployed. And along with their mate Nick Cogger, aka the Beer Brains, it's been an incredible success story. Their idea was simple: take an average beer and ask, what can we remove or improve? Their flagship product was launched as a zero-carb beer, and they hit $100 million in revenue in just 2.5 years. An incredible story. Before Better Beer, Hannah was an FMCG queen with experience at Pernod Ricard, working with Tom Dusseldorp, now CEO at Australian Vintage. You can check out his prior episode. She's worked at Beam Suntory and as marketing manager at Fairfax Food Events, looking after Good Food Month, the Night Noodle Markets and Australia's Top Restaurants Awards. I'm now really hungry. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Thanks for having me.
So, take me back to the early days. What first drew you into the drinks FMCG hospitality space?
Well, money. I was a student at the time, to be honest. I just call a spade a spade. I started as a glassy or a bar back in the UK. So right at the beginning of my career was literally cleaning out ashtrays. That's how long ago it was that you could actually smoke in bars back then. And was just super inquisitive, hearing the bartenders schmoozing customers, that hospitality. I think a lot of people forget the word hospitable and hospitality. And I was just kind of admired the charisma all these bartenders had. So I literally started reading the back of labels, looking them up, trying to understand what these products were. So then moved from bar backing into bartending into repping into marketing for big brands, marketing for small brands, marketing for my own brand. So it was just a natural progression over the years, to be honest. FMCG hospitality is just such a fun, welcoming, and also hardworking industry. You do get ground down every now and then, but it's just stuck with me. And it's also a passion point with what I do in my spare time. It's wining and dining when I can.
Before joining Better Beer, you worked with brands like Bacardi, Pernod Ricard and Suntory. What did those early roles teach you about marketing that stayed with you?
So I never studied marketing. So I really, I pestered someone at Pernod to give me an opportunity and mentor me when I was in a sales role there. So I learned the fundamentals of those big companies. Learning to have structure is so important. Even if working for a startup, that goes out the window so many times. You can try and have deadlines, but if you're working with creative entrepreneurs, it ain't happening. Attention to detail. I know it might seem just so obvious, but that was really drilled into me at Pernod. And I now drill that into my team. I've got a real diverse team at Better Beer. I've got people who it's their first job outside of uni, and other people who've been working in FMCG for years. So I'm drilling it into the younger ones who probably think I'm being anal and retentive, but it is so important. And not just in marketing, all facets, right? The amount of times I might get a sales proposal for a sponsorship or advertising, and the agency hasn't replaced my beer name, previous beer company's name, and they're already on the back foot, right? So yeah, attention to detail was drilled into me.
I so relate. I can't help but mention it. I'm like, is this meant for me or is this meant for the person that's named?
Yeah, and I sometimes give them a little dig, a polite, it's not a no because of that. Everyone makes mistakes. You got targets to hit, but it, a little goes a long way.
The little things, I think, become the big things. And if you can't nail the little things. What do you think has been your superpower, specifically not having a marketing, degree or background coming into marketing roles? Why do you think you've been so successful?
I think drive and ambition and passion, and they all kind of intertwine with each other naturally. Not to get too deep, my dad grew up in poverty, so he worked his ass off to get out of poverty, to give himself a different life, and then to give myself and my siblings the opportunities he didn't have as a kid. So I think seeing my dad working his ass off, but also in an industry that he didn't love. He was a chartered accountant, a great one, but it was not what he wanted to do. So I think I always took that as a learning to go and look for a job that really interested me. So I feel like I've been fortunate or maybe selective to take jobs along the whole line, whether it's bartending to marketing for brands, to work on something that I genuinely give a shit about. And it feels authentic, it feels right. Um, you spend half your waking day working. So I feel fortunate that I've always worked with roles that I'm passionate about, but it does really translate into the work that the output you're producing.
There seems to be a theme here around sort of stepping up and leaning into challenges. You mentioned also that you've never worked in beer before joining Better Beer. How did you bridge that gap, and how have you gained credibility internally over the years?
Good question. I've kind of done the whole BWS now. But yeah, Better Beer fell into my lap through someone working in the sales team. And it was right at the beginning when they've launched. So there was I think they were 2 months in, had no stock. They sold out in 2 weeks. I came on board as a contractor. So I'd set up my own business and said, I can give you 20 hours a week. That's probably all you need. Lo and behold, they needed way more than 20 hours. I think it went up to 50 and 60 pretty quickly after that. I guess skills that were transferable from spirits, wine, luxury, mainstream are all very easy to just transfer. But having the experience of running my own business, having a brand myself, being able to roll up my sleeves and do things for myself was really what they needed in the beginning. I think it was myself and a freelance social media manager and the founders, and that was it. So we had to build everything from scratch. I created essentially my own kind of in-house marketing agency so that we could do everything ourselves. I think not having the beer experience meant I wasn't bringing in stuff that had been rolled out before, because it's so easy to see as a marketer a rinse and repeat. There are so many brands, especially in liquor, it transfers to all industries, but so many brands that say, well, it worked this year, let's just do it again and change it by 5%. It's a bit lazy and it's a bit boring for the consumer. Sometimes it works, but the consumer is smarter than sometimes we give them. So yeah, I think the guys loved that breath of fresh air that I brought to the brand. I'm not our target demographic. I'm not a male 25 to 44-year-old, but I still had an understanding of how do we create an authentic brand that is going to resonate with those. So hiring was a big thing for us. So as the team kind of grew, we were bringing in people that were the target demographic. So our social media team know how to talk to the consumer because they are the consumer. Our trade marketing manager is our target demographic. So I think the broad experience I've had in liquor just paid off.
So you mentioned you joined the business at sort of month 2, and I said before that it was sort of a $0 to $100 million revenue in those first 30 months. What were the key inflection points or moments that mattered in that trajectory?
I think we had a real range of luck. A lot of fortunate decisions were made, but when they launched, there was a product that didn't exist in the market. So younger drinkers were slowing down on drinking. We've seen that trend for years. They're drinking less, they're drinking better. So we had a product that was missing the market. We were the first to launch a zero carb beer. It's refreshing, it's sessionable, it's kind of perfect for what Aussies want. We had the right distribution partner. So working with Endeavour, we've got the lion's share of the retail market, made it really easy for us to be accessible. And then having the boys, so the co-founders, Matt and Jack, the Inspired Unemployed, they were probably at 1.5 million followers when they launched, now closer to 2. They resonated completely already to an audience. So they were our target drinker. So any kind of lookalike of Matt and Jack straight away converted into the brand. So yeah, there were lots of amazing decisions made, but also I think it was the compound of quite a few lucky scenarios. Another one was the hype and the kind of FOMO that naturally or accidentally happened in the beginning. So just before I started, Once they launched, all the stock sold out. So I think 3 months worth of stock sold out in the first week or two. And then we had that second wave of COVID. So someone at the canning line got COVID. It meant there was a delay on production. Logistics, so a delay. Someone else had COVID, and it was still really strict then. So there was a further delay of we actually can't get stock to consumers. So that young Gen Z millennial audience have got FOMO. You can't get it and they want it. They wanted it more. So when stock went out on shelves eventually, it just boomed again. So it's pretty wild.
When you started, how much brand strategy thinking had been developed? I assume the brand had been done because there was a product in market. Yeah, how much was developed and how much have you developed since?
I'm laughing because it was sweet FA, to be honest. Very entrepreneurial creatives as the co-founders. So, Nick, the beer guy, the brains guys you mentioned in the beginning, he had done due diligence. He'd owned small brands before, entrepreneurial style, trying a few things, don't stick, try again. So he already knew you've got to have brand guidelines. You've got to have some sort of identity. Otherwise, it'll just be a mismatch. But yeah, I really inherited very little other than brand guidelines. So everything was set up from scratch. We don't tend to do annual marketing plans either. So I've tried to introduce a bit of structure, much to the dismay of our retail partners who are constantly getting the shits with us because we are still maybe a bit too fast and a bit too nimble and too ambitious. They probably would welcome a 12-month marketing plan. But that's what's kept us relevant, is that we're able to be nimble. If something's trending, like that narrow Instagram post that's blowing up everyone's feed at the moment, I think it's like a 520 something by 1080, and it's a tiny narrow thing. We can, if we've got a great idea and it's authentic, rather than just a spray and pray, jumping on the bandwagon because everyone's doing it, we can drop things, move it around and make it happen while it's still kind of got that viral moment.
You mentioned before that the audience was the guys, the host of the podcast. Has that changed since, or is the audience still the same? Have you done any other persona and sort of any more development in that space, or it's just really clear who you talk to and it's sort of stayed consistent?
Bit from column A, bit from column B. So we've retained that young drinker. We're staying relevant with them, and everything that we're doing from a brand has to be relevant. There's such, no offense, they are such a flaky market. Something like Hard Rated comes out. There's a shiny new thing over here that they want to try. There's an 8% whatever coming out. So we have to stay authentic and stand our ground to keep relevant, top of mind for those guys when they are thinking about beer. And there's an occasion to change category, right? So usually what we see is when the sun goes down, people switch over to spirits. So our beer being super refreshing is like an absolute day for it sessionable beer. We get that? But no, we've had to broaden big time. There are so many beer drinkers that don't know Matt and Jack, or they do and they don't find them funny, or they don't resonate with them for whatever reason. There's the older drinker that's not on Instagram. So while we are digitally first from a marketing perspective and have the largest and most engaged following for a liquor brand in the country, we know that there's so many drinkers that are not Instagram. So we can't put all of our eggs in one basket with Instagram, even Facebook. So yeah, different personas being that young drinker's dad. They've got those brands that have been around for years and they're rusted on. But the amount of DMs that we get through social from these guys' dads saying, my son or my niece has got me onto your beer. I've lost 20 kilos now. They're so happy with themselves that they haven't had to cut back the amount of beers that they're drinking. And these guys are the buy 2 slabs a week drinkers. Like, they are never going to change. But there are so many, like I said, that have got those brands rusted onto them that it's very hard to edge your way in. So different partnerships, different advertising investments, more traditional media. That's where we kind of talk to those guys. We've also got a lot of female drinkers. So again, we don't want to be too polarizing to women that this is a man's drink. It's absolutely not a man's drink. Again, it's light, it's refreshing, it's easy to drink. And athletes. So I've got a demographic I like to refer to as they're piss fit and physically fit. So getting into those people, getting into the run clubs, that's just been trending so hard since COVID, getting into those drinkers who don't really want to compromise on the fun, but they're taking a bit better care of their body now. So, they might be inching into their 40s and their metabolism slowing down, but they still love going out on a Friday afternoon. So there's, numerous personas that we're talking to.
One of the things I find really interesting is when a founder brand scales, and builds out a marketing team or somebody separate in a marketing function that's not a founder. How do you make decisions these days, 4 years on, around how involved the guys are in the brand and when to delineate from their input into a sort of standalone brand that, you mentioned audiences might not even know that they're behind it?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest parts of my roles as a marketing director is to create a brand that stands on its own 2 feet. Matt and Jack aren't always relevant to everyone, but it's it's knowing the balance of when you actually want to use that asset, because they are so likable, they are lovable. Every bit of content we use with Matt and Jack is by far the best performing content that we ever post. So it's finding that balance of keeping them exciting. If we peppered our Instagram feed with the boys every day, they wouldn't be as fun, they wouldn't be as shiny, wouldn't be as exciting. So we are really selective with how often we use them. Cogger, the CEO, doesn't want his face on anything, so he's very happy to be behind the scenes. But yeah, Matt and Jack, it's a fine balance.
I know you weren't there for this part of the launch, but essentially you created a new subcategory in a declining broader category. Was there any market research to validate that a zero carb beer would appeal, or was it just gut feel?
Gut feel. It's been gut feel for the first 3 years. So it's taken me months to try and convince them to start to dip into a bit of market research. As we go into our 4th year, we're not the shiny new product anymore. Still relevant, still growing, distribution's growing. But sometimes those gut feels, if our budgets grow, or as the budgets grow, you kind of actually need something else that can substantiate what you're going to go and do. So yeah, I know this episode's sponsored by Tracksuit, but we use Tracksuit. So it's a much more affordable way of market research compared to traditional. There's another platform we're looking at as well that's more on-demand market research, sister brand to Tracksuit ideally. So again, if there's something that we really probably just need to test quickly, we'll use something like that rather than the arduous process of 6 months and 100K worth of market research that the boys wouldn't sign off on.
Dan Murphy's shared some data last year that showed mid-strength and low-carb offerings are showing the biggest sales performance across all subcategories. Great news for you guys, but does it mean there's more competitors entering the market? And how do you stay fresh 4 years in? You're no longer the new guy. How do you reinvent yourself?
So our mid-strength MIDI has been a sleeping giant for us. We launched that about 2.5 years ago, and we're getting all of our major growth from the brand from MIDI. So we're doubling down on MIDI. We've also got another new product launching in a couple of months, which probably won't tell you about just now.
Oh, intriguing.
That's really leaning into that no, ultra low carb category that is just booming. So innovation, innovation doesn't necessarily have to be some radical new product that's never been done before. It could be pack format changes. So there's plenty to stay fresh with, but a lot of the marketing that we're doing isn't hard sell anyway. So for us, it's the entertainment factor is so big that keeps us relevant. Jumping on trending, memes, virality, collabs, partnerships, that is what keeps us kind of going, even if our main SKU is our number one seller.
You mentioned all the different channels. I know that you guys as a team respond to everyone. How do you scale that? I mean, that's incredible to sort of have that tight-knit community and genuinely care. How do you think about scaling the brand across so many channels?
Yeah, so for context, we do reply to every message, and there's a ton of them. Though we can't share everything because for several reasons we just can't. ABAC already hate us. But people want to be heard. So the community that we've built is from listening to them, sharing it. People get a little kick that they've seen a brand that they love reposting their story, even just acknowledging it. The double heart, the thumbs up is a lazy way of responding with someone. We have a laugh with them. There's a lot of great, solid, genuine, authentic banter happening. So word of mouth is where we want to grow from there, is how do we continue to grow the community? We've got a couple of really big projects coming up that I definitely can't talk about now, but it's all around driving word of mouth. So we kind of call ourselves Oprah Tin Free because we're always giving away prizes, giving back. And we know people talk about that. They love getting something for something. So there'll be a much bigger giveaway coming up that, if you've got a great brand experience with someone, you're probably going to tell your mates about it over a beer at a barbecue, right? Like, oh, I just won this water bottle, or I won $20 cash back when I bought a slab. You probably tell someone about that as opposed to, I just got yet another neoprene tinny cooler when I bought a slab of beer. It's a bit boring. So we like to do more interesting giveaways that drive conversation.
Tell me a bit about that ideation process. Who's involved and how do you come up with the ideas and how do you keep them relevant and timely?
So as I said earlier, my team is all, as much as we can, we do in-house. So we've never gone to an agency to say, help us with ideas. If anything, we've got too many ideas and it's my job to kind of wrangle in timings. When's the best time to do it? What budget should we appoint to that idea, or sometimes veto entirely? But yeah, it's all the creativity is entirely the marketing team. So it might be Matt, Jack, Nick on a call, myself. We've got a really great creative director, Cal, who's been here since day one, who started as a social media manager. We all know the brand. We all live and breathe it. We know what's trending. Everyone generally does care and is passionate about the brand. We feel like a little family. So we springboard off each other. And often you'll go in with an agenda and it gets derailed. And that's what happens when you work with creative entrepreneurs. But more often than not, after a 90-minute call, we've left with so many little gems. And like I said, it's my role to kind of work out, when do we do these?
Over this past 4 years, how have the guys thought about the podcast as a channel, marketing channel for Better Beer? Or has it been really natural and not formalized? And if they happen to mention it, what's the interrelationship there?
Oh, it's completely integrated. They were working with Spotify in the beginning, so obviously everything was commercialized. Not as easy to get integration as you would think. So yeah, the boys were just always kind of subconsciously thinking about the brand, but if anything, it would just be showing up wearing some merch, or if they could, they'd crack a beer on the show. But there was never any pre-roll, mid-roll, there's no live reads, anything like that. It was completely a low-level product placement per se. And that's kind of what we've done with other podcast sponsorships is, the pre-mid-roll reads are great sometimes, but they can get really dry and really repetitive. And, sometimes podcasts can get glitchy, right? So you hear the same ad over and over and over again, and it's pretty boring. So for us, with any podcast partnerships, and we do spend a lot of money on podcasts, we found it's just that really intimate way of talking to consumers, like the new version of Talkback Radio. We always try and make sure it's completely integrated. So understanding what their favorite drink is, rather than here, hold this, make sure it's, the label's facing this way. I don't want to see a barcode. It's always got to feel natural and that they actually like the product. Otherwise, young consumers, they know if it's BS or not. They know if it's paid. So yeah, same with Boys Podcast. Just keep it really integrated and natural.
When it comes to advertising or the advertising component of your marketing remit, do you think about them as ads or do you just think about them as entertainment?
Depends where it's going. I probably irritate my art director, but every different ad, I've considered a different tagline, different bigger copy, different image entirely. There's no, can you resize this? It's all completely different.
Where does that come from? What drives that? Because that's probably quite different how most brands would think about brand consistency and using the same assets.
Yeah, no, it's just understanding that we're so spammed and inundated with advertising. Whether you're walking to get a coffee, you're going to see a billboard, bus advertising, bus stop. You're looking at your phone. Every other post these days is a sponsored post. So it's making sure that when you're trying to get cut through, it's genuine rather than this is an ad. Everything that we do and I do, I want to make sure it does not feel like a blatant ad. With social media, we treat our organic page and all of our organic content as entertaining. Number one, it's entertaining. And then secondary, we might follow up with paid ads, retargeting for, by the way, here's the unique, the USPs of this product, just to kind of keep it top of mind. But even with those ads, we're trying to add value. So it might even be if it's on promo rather than just something quite dry. So yeah, just knowing that we are completely obliterated with advertising all the time. We've got to make sure it feels authentic. Otherwise, it's not going to get seen. And all that money you spent on that ad, the time creating it, negotiating rates, getting the design, finessed. There's no point if it's just going to get washed over.
I was reading that you ran an Instagram giveaway a couple of years back that grew your following by 20,000 followers in just 5 days, amassed over 80,000 comments on a single post. These are astronomical numbers for an organic campaign, especially for a young brand. But the big question from me is, how does that translate to sales, and how do you track or gauge success? Is it vanity or does it have commercial outcomes?
Very good question and very valid, because you just cannot attribute everything you do as a marketer to a direct sale. That might have put Better Beer in the back of their mind because their friend tagged them on a fun prize. You just physically cannot see the tangible results. And even with advertising, if we push through ads to, let's say, Dan Murphy's website, we will never see that conversion. Only Dan's will see that conversion. So as a marketer, we're in this really tricky position to actually say, is it doing anything? And that's why we've invested in Tracksuit, to actually say, all right, with some of these really big national campaigns, is it moving the dial? We've got our annual Day for It Day sale. So it's basically a bit of a publicity stunt that we came up with a few years ago, that the first Saturday of summer should be a public holiday. So we have a really aggressive sale. That's the kind of thing that we can literally see. It's been tangible. But for a lot of those giveaways, there's usually a secondary objective behind it. So the competition you're referring to was leading into that Day for It Day sale. So rather than just saying on our channels every day, you can get zero carb or midi on sale this weekend, who cares? Like, whatever. But telling people in a really fun way of, you can also win this $3,000 pizza oven or a trip to Queenstown with you and your 3 best mates. The underlying message is still there. Is the reason we're doing this is because the sale is coming up, but we just don't overtly talk about it.
How did you land on the Day for It idea, and how did you sort of decide on how to execute it? Was it an easy idea? Did it just sort of come about, or was it a more formalized, planned thing?
No, with most things, these ideas are really last minute. We all agree that they're pretty cool, and then it's, how do we turn around that quickly? So we trademarked the lovely catchphrase Day for It. So we had the idea of, well, let's create a day for it, like an actual day. How do we own summer? As a challenger brand, we don't have the budgets that our competitors have. Like the two big companies absolutely dwarf our budgets and always will. So we have to be really creative and quite sneaky to kind of get a bit of cut through, get a bit of share of voice from them. So yeah, for Day for It Day, I really hated the phrase for ages because it just felt so forced, adding the day at the end. But yeah, consumers lapped it up, and the retailers loved it as well because they saw the sales and saw how it worked so well. But yeah, from an execution perspective, at the end of the day, it's a sale, it's a promo, but we've just wrapped it up and made it more fun.
Clever. You mentioned you just moved to Tracksuit. What are your intentions for brand tracking? What do you hope that it helps shape or inform for you?
It is brand health through and through. So we're not a business that has the big budgets to invest in brand tracking. A lot of it is done by gut, but it's going to be useful for us to actually know if, this $100,000 investment that is huge for us is actually affecting and improving the brand health. Are we talking to new drinkers? Are we acquiring new drinkers? It's a much more affordable way of having that understanding, but also being able to give that information back to retailers. So whether it's a new product we're launching, an extension of the range, we can actually go to them and say, we weren't the flash in the pan brand that you thought we might have been. 4 years on, we're still growing, distribution still growing, revenue still growing. So yeah, it's just another way of backing up some of the sales and marketing fluff we might give to retailers.
Do you think you could ever go back to big established business now? I feel like you've experienced so much across the marketing remit and the speed and the pace and the entrepreneurial spirit. I can't imagine you now in a corporate role. How do you reconcile that?
No, I don't, unless it is something really interesting. I don't think I could either, because there's so many guardrails. What I've loved about working for Better Beer, it's definitely a marketer's dream brand to work on because it's so creative. We don't have red tape. We don't have a legal team saying, no, don't, like a risk adverse company saying, don't do that. Everything's got to be compliant with ABAC. Anyone listening that works in liquor will know the amount of times that we've had a slap on the wrist by ABAC, but we've kind of rolled the dice going, it's funny, it's actually harmless. Let's just do it. It'll get seen for a few weeks, then we'll take it down. Game over. So I couldn't imagine working for a big corporate company if it was too safe, personally. I think I'd work for myself or work on another startup again.
Have you had any mentors or role models, or how have you supported yourself in your own leadership development over the years?
Yeah, great question. I've had two that stand out. The first one was Julian Marteau at Pernod when I was a sales rep, eager to kind of get into marketing. So I pestered him, I pestered the MD, give me a chance. I've got commercial acumen. I've worked in liquor my whole adult life. But like I said in the beginning, I had no marketing experience whatsoever, just kind of a bit ballsy saying I can do that. So Julian was super great. He was patient, really taught me the fundamentals in his spare time. And I say spare time, this guy had no spare time. He really was putting in extra hours a week for me. Which eventually translated in a role for me to move into marketing in wine. Julian taught me the importance of solid briefs that has just stuck with me every time I'm writing a brief. Even when you're under the pump, you have to focus on your brief, because if you're uncertain about what you want the outcome to be, your agency is going to have no idea, or your designer is going to have no idea. So you've actually really got to not cut corners with briefs and make sure you are as clear and concise as possible. And then Vanessa Cowell from Fairfax or Nine, when I was at Good Food for 4 years, she taught me how to be a great leader. So she gave me that understanding of how to have that great balance of being an empath, but also making sure that your team are getting shit done. So even when she'd be incredibly busy, she'd always make the time for the team. She'd always go out of her way. Even if she might be quietly drowning in the background, you'll never know. And it was pretty cool learning to actually be calm and composed. Otherwise, you were going to put that stress onto your team.
It feels like a sort of red thread throughout this conversation is gut feel, both from a brand perspective from the founders, but also your remit and role, trying new things from a marketing perspective. How do you onboard new people into your team if it's gut feel led? Do you think it can be taught, or is it that just some people get it and other people don't?
Very good question. I think obviously that's why you screen people and interview them in the first place, right? Is a lot of the time, because Better Beer is such a desirable brand, whenever I do advertise for a role, I've got easily over 200 applicants for the role, whether it's a junior role, a senior role. It's overwhelming, but it's also it's pretty cool to see that many people really want to work on the brand. So a lot of the time I might get people who have worked at huge corporate companies and have got this amazing resume. And I just think you don't know how to do the work yourself because you work with agencies so much. I know because I've been there. I do still often interview those people just in case anyone's listening and they've been snubbed by me. But yeah, having a real clear understanding of their experience. For Better Beer, as you know, I'm not talking about any of the brand that I've worked on. In Better Beer specifically, I really need someone that gets it. Working for a startup, you have to understand that you are wearing many, many, many hats. So in the beginning, I was literally HR. I'd be using a template and I was writing contracts myself. I was filing them away, setting up emails. I was doing a bit of IT myself. So I've kind of needed a few more people like that just get it and they're happy to roll up their sleeves. Your title is this, but I might ask you to do something completely different. So they've got to be agile. It's one thing saying that you're agile, keen to work in a fast-paced environment, but it's another thing actually being able to handle that.
What consumer preferences or trends or ideas are you interested in and following closely at the moment?
I love collabs. And we do a ton of collabs for numerous reasons. I think in the traditional sense, it's brand equity. You're kind of building your brand off the leverage of someone else's, or audience acquisition, bringing someone in that might not have considered your brand before. I worked in luxury for a few years, so I just can't shake that. So I've loved seeing, Gucci, Adidas, Miu Miu, New Balance recently. The audacity of selling a keyring for something like $400 or whatever it is obnoxious, but there's a consumer out there that eats that shit up. So yeah, collabs is something that we love, and we do so many. A traditional product marketer, I really should be spending 90% of my time on what's the beer brand marketing campaign that we're doing to tell people that we've got Australia's #1 zero carb beer. But it's actually the reality that's not true. I'm not spending all my time just on the beer. It's actually these kind of smaller, more niche brand building exercises that we're doing that are really paying off for us. So I think we've got probably one collab per month coming up, whether it's in golf, we've got a lot of stuff in the running space. We've got all these different e-com merch brands coming out. And as a brand, we sell probably about $500,000 worth of merch a year, which, you know, compared to the beer is nothing. That's peanuts. That's pocket money. But the way I see merch is a bit of a litmus test on brand health. So if someone's willing to drink your beer and then spend more money on wearing your item of clothing, whether it's a hoodie, a cap, tote bag, whatever, that's your brand loyalist. So every year we're kind of also looking at our e-com sales as well to see, is it growing? Has it dipped? Obviously, there's only so many Better Beer hoodies that one person can own. But because we're constantly doing refreshed merch, all these collab brands, that's for us a really exciting thing that just keeps people, give them another reason to think about the brand without, again, adversely selling beer.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Do you think of yourself as a health brand?
We've definitely, yeah, I would say we are, because everything in our range of drinks is better for you in some way. So whether it's lower sugar, low sugar, no sugar, like I said before, there's our demographic is someone that's piss fit, but also caring about their body. So they can, you know, they might run a couple of miles, they might run a couple of Ks, but they're not going to sacrifice going out. You know, if they've got a morning run the next day, they're still going to go to the pub with their mates. And that's where Better Beer kind of sits in that sweet spot of, you're not necessarily going to find us down the health aisle, but it is for that consumer that just wants to make a more conscious decision on how they're drinking and how many calories they actually will consume.
Are you distributing globally? Do you have any plans to go globally? And I guess I'm interested in, do you think this sort of Australian day for it mateship idea will resonate globally?
We've looked at the UK a couple of times, and for numerous reasons, whether it's, you know, huge changes in the business here domestically, we just haven't been able to put the resource in, and so many brands grow too quickly and get too excited, and then they kind of take their eye off the prize, which for us is Australia. So yeah, our gut at the time was, let's revisit the UK, which we're kind of looking at now. As the marketing director, I need to make sure that our day for it, Aussie larrikinism, does translate, because we know we've got distribution in New Zealand, very small, but we know that the Aussie larrikin doesn't necessarily translate over there. So again, it's just understanding, how do you talk to Kiwis? It's multicultural, it's diverse, there's completely different sayings. So you've got to stay true to what you are as a brand. You just have to be able to know how to talk to them.
Who do you think does brand marketing really well?
I'm obsessed with Liquid Death out of the US. Have you heard of them? So again, they've just kind of reinvigorated that category entirely. And again, from a social media perspective, super interesting for us to watch them, knowing that we're huge on social too. But they're just churning out content every other day, and it is incredible. And it's not a hard sell. Again, it's a soft sell. There's another product I love called Grazza, which is this olive oil brand out of the US.
Is that the squirty bottle one?
Yeah. So simple. There's drizzle and sizzle. Perfect. Like, bang on. They've nailed that. Definitely annoyed I didn't think of that myself. But yeah, Grazza, from a brand perspective, more like a product solution that they've nailed that. Like, really lovely branding, and great that he's put it in a squeezy bottle and has changed up the norm of, you've got a nice fancy glass bottle on, you know, on your splashback. But yeah, Liquid Death, hands down. They've just absolutely nailed it. What about you? Is it who are you?
This is not a reverse podcast. You did not send me prep questions. Have you seen the vitamin brand Gruns? I think they're doing some really interesting stuff. They've got the little umlaut on the U, like German almost, Gruns, Gruns. They both, from a marketing and a product perspective, and I think that's when you get into like 4 Ps of marketing, not just promoting an inherited product, but having marketing and product much more interrelated. Essentially vitamins, like gummy vitamins in all different forms for different reasons and audiences. But I think branding's really strong. I think how they think about social, even on LinkedIn, the founders often talking. I personally love brands that do really cool and interesting stuff on LinkedIn. So I don't know if you've ever come across the cereal brand Surreal out of the UK. They're a British, kind of like healthier versions of your childhood favourite, like Cocoa Pops or whatever.
Oh, cool.
But they nail LinkedIn. Have a look at it. They just own the platform for what it is, and they sort of use their tone of voice applied to the channel rather than category norms. So I'm a big tone of voice copy enthusiast. So when someone is doing something really unique go-to is a good classic example of tone of voice as a differentiator. But I tend to admire and lean towards those. I just find it quite intelligent.
Yeah, same. Yeah, Go-To, Zoe's done an incredible job. Go-To, Bro-To, Grow-To. Oh, just perfect.
Do you spend any time thinking about protecting the Better Beer brand? From everything you've said and everything I know about the brand, it's so well loved and such a authentically Australian brand. But I could imagine that one wrong step from a collaboration perspective or, even just sort of any associations you've had, you mentioned merch, it could be your undoing. Do you think about sort of risk and reputation much, or you just keep following your gut and hope it works out?
No, big time. There's not often that ideas will kind of come across my desk per se that I say absolutely not. We are in that era of cancel culture, right? It does not take much to go in the wrong direction. You saw it with Bud Light in the US. There's another Australian beer brand who one of their campaigns backfired earlier this year and had a huge backlash for their core drinkers. They just completely missed the mark on it. So yeah, it does happen, unfortunately. It's all too common. So yeah, we sense check everything. And if our gut says there's a slight risk, we don't even do it. And whether it's just from the brand or if it's sponsorship, if we're working with someone who might say something out of line, then yeah, we would end that agreement. Fortunately, we've never had that. But yeah, absolutely. We'll risk certain things, whether it's ABAC and we're telling someone to have a shoey. We shouldn't do that. That is harmless. You can't get cancelled for a shoey. But there are obviously certain elements. We don't want to attack anyone or poke fun at anyone. Anything that we do is laughing at ourselves and laughing with each other. But yeah, you have to be super mindful and respectful. What you do could offend someone.
This has been such an enjoyable conversation. I could keep chatting to you for hours. Congratulations on everything you've achieved the last 4 years. The brand's kicking goals and can't wait to see all of the collabs over the subsequent months, and make sure you fill me in on all these cool new things you can't talk about.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Bye.
One of my biggest takeaways chatting with Hannah is the idea of a truly integrated approach between product, the Imperfects founders and hosts of the podcast, the entertainment value of the content, the focus on social, the interaction with audiences. It's almost like a new breed of brand that is growing up through different social channels and focusing on the customer as a community, as a way of being and a lifestyle, and tapping into them and into their parents. And I think it underpins the incredible growth that they've seen.